Hi, Timothy Carlson here, and going to be trying something completely different on my channel today. Usually I use this channel for unboxing and reviews of music, movies, games, toys, and so forth. But since I've lived in Las Vegas my whole life, I wanted to try something totally different. I wanted to rate my picks for the top 20 restaurants in the Las Vegas Valley that are no longer open, but that I of course have many fond memories of. Now, I grew up in Henderson, so this list may veer a little heavily on that side of things. I'm also rating these restaurants based on the quality of the food, the memories I have of them, and I'm also rating them, of course, in their peak, at their height. I know a lot of these restaurants went into decline, and near the end it wasn't necessarily as great as it once was, but I'm only looking at like the best memories that I have of these restaurants for the purposes of this list. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this. Just if you disagree and you want to add something down below, please feel free. Keep in mind, too, I was born in 1984, so I didn't get to eat at a lot of the older Vegas restaurants that aren't around anymore. So you're not going to see things like Alpine Village show up on here. And like I said, again, because I grew up in Henderson, it might veer a little heavily towards restaurants that were in Henderson. I've tried to include pictures of the restaurants in question, or at least the brand name and so forth. I wasn't able to get these for everything, so I'll include a caption with the name of the restaurant if that's the case. Let's go ahead and get started now. I'm going to start with some honorable mentions. A lot of the stuff on this list, it's going to be a combination of both local family-owned businesses as well as chain restaurants that don't serve the Las Vegas Valley anymore. For the first two honorable mentions, I'm going to go with TGI Fridays and Tony Roma's. Both of these restaurants used to have a ton of locations around the Vegas Valley, but they closed them all other than casino locations. That means they do still exist in Vegas, so I can't quite put them on the list. Another honorable mention, Farm Basket. Farm Basket was a great poultry restaurant that had a lot of locations around town. They only have one surviving location over on West Charleston. Because one location survives, I can't quite put them on the list. Last honorable mention goes to Pizza Hut locations that had a dine-in lunch buffet. There's a lot of Pizza Huts around, so I can't put them on the list, but most of the locations that exist nowadays are just takeout and delivery locations. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on with the main list. At number 20, I have Bennigan's. Bennigan's, to my knowledge, only had one restaurant location in the Vegas Valley, and that was over on Sunset out in Henderson. Bennigan's, of course, just a traditional sort of bar, food, restaurant, and I think they're probably more famous these days because they were featured in an episode of South Park. But Bennigan's actually had pretty decent food, and it's a shame that this location wasn't around longer because they actually had some pretty solid picks on their menu. At number 19 on the list, we have Mazzio's Pizza. A lot of pizzerias in this town have come and gone. Mazzio's is actually a chain that still exists, just no longer in Vegas. They did have a location in Henderson out in Green Valley that I frequented with my family when I was a young boy, and I do have a lot of pretty good memories of eating there. We actually, at my parents' house, even have some plastic cups that came from Mazzio's that we still use. I mean, they had good food. They also had a few arcade games up front, so that was always good for the kids. The only reason this isn't higher on the list is because they closed when I was fairly young, so I don't have as many memories here as I do of a lot of the other places. Number 18 on the list, we have Chevy's. Chevy's, of course, a chain Mexican restaurant that's actually pretty solid. They're better than you would think at first glance. Whenever my dad was out of town for work, my mom and I would go eat here pretty often. Pretty high quality Mexican food despite being a chain restaurant, and one of the real highlights of this place for me is they actually had Fresca on tap as a beverage. I can't say that I've ever seen that in any other restaurant. At number 17, we have Kuzlo's Pizza. Kuzlo's was located in downtown Henderson. I only ever ate there twice, so I can't really put them higher on the list, but they had this really good deep dish pizza that I've never had the like of anywhere else. No one else has yet to equal this in my book. But one of the things I loved about Kuzlo's, in addition to that pizza, I mean, it was so thick, a deep dish pizza, when you ordered it, the box was actually heavy enough that you had to somewhat strain to carry it. How often can you say that about a pizza restaurant? Number 16, we have the Old Spaghetti Factory. This is another chain restaurant that we had in the Vegas Valley, but unfortunately didn't really last very long. They still have a lot of them in other states. This one was over by the Galleria Mall in Henderson. Just sort of a good routine lunch place. I remember I'd always go there with my family on Manicotti Day because that was one of my favorite things to eat. I mean, the Old Spaghetti Factory is still a pretty popular chain. Hopefully we'll see them open another location in the Vegas Valley at some point. Number 15, we have Sizzler. Sizzler, of course, very popular, just American restaurant. My biggest memory of Sizzler when I was a kid, when they had a location in Henderson, is they actually had a kids' meal buffet. And I can't really think of any other restaurant that has had this. And I always loved the kids' meal buffet because when you were done eating all the dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets you want, you could get all the ice cream you want. I remember one time my father made a bet with me. He bet me $5 I couldn't eat another thing of ice cream. Guess what? I won that bet. And that's one of my favorite of all restaurant memories here in the Vegas Valley. At number 14, we have Mizuno's. Mizuno's was a Japanese teppanyaki cook table style restaurant that was in the Tropicana Hotel Casino. I don't exactly know how long that they were around for. I only ate in here like 2 or 3 times, but this place had the best fried rice I have ever had in my life. They used a little more garlic, which of course doesn't appeal to everyone, but to me, it made the experience complete. And of course, their entrees weren't half bad either. I haven't been in the Tropicana in ages. I know this restaurant's not there anymore, and I don't know what they have now, but I assure you whatever they're now cannot equal Mizuno's. At number 13, we have Pacquiao. Pacquiao was a restaurant that existed for several decades in downtown Henderson. It's just sort of like a retro-style burger place, but they also had a drive-through, so you could go through there. That added a little bit of convenience to the mix. Pacquiao had some pretty good food. I'm not really a burger person, but I fell in love with their chicken fingers, which are, to this day, some of the best ones I've ever had. And they, of course, had fry sauce, which not all restaurants have. The building that was once Pacquiao has hosted many other restaurants over the years, although, to me, nothing else that's been in that building has equaled Pacquiao. I also remember going down here for an event when I was in the Cub Scouts back in the day, so it's a place I frequented, and I was very disappointed to see it go when that happened. At number 12 on the list, we have Pistol Pete's Pizza. Now, again, there's a lot of pizza chains around that have, gaming and recreation for kids, but my first experience with that as a kid was Pistol Pete's. They had a lot of locations, including one in Henderson that was at Lake Mead in Boulder. And when I was a kid, and when my little brother was a kid, this is where we had all our birthday parties until they closed down, probably around 93, 94 or so. They had a lot of games and fun recreational opportunities. Some locations even had an animatronic band and some bigger rides. The Henderson location was pretty basic, but it still had a lot of arcade games, so I had a lot of fun there back in the day. Even after the Henderson location closed down, we would still get takeout from some of the Las Vegas locations. The locations that survived after that one eventually were bought out and became Peter Piper pizza locations. Eventually those all closed too, but they've tried to bring back and slightly redo the Peter Piper brand. I have yet to eat in one of the newer Peter Piper restaurants though. Number 11 is a tie. This is 2 locations that are in the Fiesta Henderson, one being the Letitia's Mexican restaurant and the other being their buffet. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, a lot of hotel casinos closed their doors. Most of them have since reopened, but a few of them haven't. Fiesta Henderson, unfortunately, is one of those that remains closed. Letitia's was a great Mexican restaurant that had a few things I haven't really seen anywhere else. They had like a breaded, boneless chicken dish that I thought was really good, as well as like chicken mole. There were several things here that I really liked. I'm not going to get too into that here, but it's nice to see a Mexican restaurant that's not just generic. And the buffet had a pretty good assortment of food choices, and I'm not necessarily even saying it was the best buffet in town, but it was convenient and easy to get to. They had a lot of food choices, and I always ate myself full in there because there were so many things to choose from. Let's hope the Fiesta reopens someday and these restaurants reopen along with it. Number 10, we have Fortunato's. Fortunato's was over at Tropicana and Pecos, just sort of a little hole-in-the-wall Italian place, but the food was fantastic. This might have been the best bread I've ever had in any Italian restaurant, and then, of course, the usual choices like ravioli and manicotti I absolutely fell in love with. Seems like for a period of time when I was in high school, my family and I would eat here like no less than once a week, and it was something that I always looked forward to, so when management changed and things started going south, it's a shame that, it went that route because this was one of my favorite restaurants ever. At number 9 on the list, we have Fazolis. Fazolis, of course, being an Italian fast food chain. Now, their positioning on this list does not mean that their food is better than the restaurants that rank below. Obviously, dine-in Italian is always going to be better than fast food Italian. But Fazolis brought fast food to a fast, convenient way of getting stuff. And the one that was out in Summerlin was really great because I could eat there when I was doing my day job on my lunch break. At their peak in Vegas, Fazolis had 4 locations in the Vegas Valley, but after a while, only the one that was in Summerlin survived, and that eventually closed in 2016. Sadly, there are no more Fazolis locations in the Las Vegas Valley, but I hope eventually this ends up being a market that the chain decides to revisit. At number 8 on the list, we have Lotus. Chinese restaurants, again, a thing you have a lot of in the Las Vegas Valley. Lotus was in downtown Henderson. This was there forever. My family and I would dine in there, would take out. They had a lot of quality Chinese dishes. And when they ended up demolishing this a few years ago, along with the whole, expansion and development of the Water Street district, I was pretty bummed. I mean, there are certainly Chinese restaurants in town, both takeout, delivery, and dine-in as well. But for me, Lotus has always just sort of been the pinnacle of Chinese dining in the Vegas Valley. I have yet to see anything that really changes my mind there. At number 7 on the list, we have Anime Ramen. Do you like anime? Do you like manga? Do you like cute Japanese girls that are dressed up as anime characters? Anime Ramen had all of that. Plus, they had a reading library of manga, and they were showing anime movies on their televisions all the time. This was located on Spring Mountain over in the Chinatown Mall. And I ate there several times with my old girlfriend back in the day. They had a lot of decent quality dishes in there. The food was actually better than you would expect for kind of a gimmicky place like this. I remember they had like a curry chicken dish I really liked. They also had some of the best fries I've ever had. There's a lot of stuff that was maybe a little more adventurous that I didn't dare try, but I have to say, this was one of my favorite restaurants in Vegas, and it had a pretty creative gimmick. There have been all kinds of talks about, reopening this place. Eventually, an anime boba place opened over on Sunset, which may or may not be run by the same owners. I'm not totally sure there, but if I learn more about that, I'll certainly share it on the channel. Number 6 on the list, we have Five and Diner. Five and Diner is a chain of 50s diners. I absolutely love going to places like this. And they had 5 restaurants in the Vegas Valley, some in Henderson, some further out in Las Vegas. All of them closed down except for the one on Eastern and Pebble, but eventually that one closed as well, which was a shame. I mean, this place had great chicken fingers, great shakes, pretty good variety of, standard diner food. It was a fun place to go to for the retro vibe, but it had the food that could back it up too, so that's definitely a plus. Apparently they do still have Five and Diners in other states, but I wish they'd open a new one out here in Vegas. At number 5 on this list, we have Sauce. Sauce, of course, another Italian restaurant. This was actually the building that used to be the old spaghetti factory. This building's been a ton of things over the years. Sauce had some fantastic Italian food, but the thing that set them apart was they actually had a create-your-own pasta option where you could add a lot of different choices, ranging from things like mushrooms to garlic to your choice of noodles. This model is not unique to this restaurant, but I don't think any restaurant ever did it better than this one. And that's why it was one of my favorite restaurants in Vegas. It's a shame to see that this one didn't stick around and that building continues to be transient with a bunch of different restaurants going in. And number 4 on the list, we have Cheeburger. This is a chain of burger restaurants, which kind of like Five and Diner goes for the whole 50s vibe. And they've got some good food, but what really won me over about Cheeburger is you actually had the option to create your own shake. You could mix all kinds of flavors, and so if you want to get one shake or another, this way you can just sort of combine them and try these combinations and just see what works. I came up with all kinds of wild combinations, and I'm also pretty sure I gained a ton of weight from drinking all their shakes so much. I first discovered this place because I won a free lunch there in a radio contest once. They had a location on South Rainbow, and they eventually opened one over on like Eastern and St. Rose several years later. Sadly, both locations have since closed down. It is a chain restaurant. I would like to see them open a new one out here in Vegas sometime because I really miss those custom make-your-own shakes and malts, and I don't know of any other place that really does anything like that. And number 3 on the list, we have Carluccios. Carluccios was an Italian restaurant that existed for years and was right there in the heart of the plaza that was also home to the Liberace Museum. This place had a great sense of ambience and atmosphere. You walk through this place, it just felt fancy compared to a lot of the other places that I've eaten at over the years. Food was to die for. Some of the best cheese ravioli I've ever had in my life. I had a lot of my birthday dinners here back when I was a teen. And of course, there's a lot of restaurants in this town that I miss. Carluccios is certainly near the top of the list. They did reopen in another location, but I believe that's also closed as well. If I hear more about that, I'll certainly post that here. Number 2 on the list, we have Emery's. Emery's was a great family-owned Italian restaurant that was located in downtown Henderson. If you couldn't already tell from this video, I love Italian food. This place, it was just a small building, but despite that, you could fit quite a few people in here, and they had a lot of dishes that I haven't really seen at other places, as well as the more common Italian restaurant fare, but I think this was some of the best versions of these dishes I ever had. I also had some of the best steaks that I've ever had in this restaurant. Every now and then that have specials and a few surprises. Did a lot of birthday dinners here, and I even took my old girlfriend there on Valentine's Day one year. This is one of my absolute favorite restaurants. When it closed down and the family that owned the place moved away, it was definitely a sad day for me, but I have a lot of great memories of Emery's, and it's one of those restaurants that's hard to top. And now for my absolute number 1 pick for a restaurant that no longer exists in Vegas, and it's probably not going to be what you're expecting. Cafe Mayakovsky. Cafe Mayakovsky, ironically enough, was actually located in the plaza that was previously Carluccios. Of course, this was long after the Liberace Museum closed, so it was just this sort of dingy-looking hole-in-the-wall place. Although once you got inside, it actually looked much nicer. They even had a backdrop that looked like you were dining in the middle of a Russian square. If you told me that when I was a kid, one day I was going to fall in love with Russian food, there's no way I would have believed you. But the fact of the matter is, this was a great restaurant with fantastic dishes. Beef stroganoff, chicken Kiev, vareniki, blinchki. I mean, I could go on and on about the great meals I've had in this place. It was a place where I took all my friends and where I took all my old girlfriends on dates. It was just a fantastic spot with a lot of ambience, even if it wasn't a dingy little strip mall that had long since passed its prime. This place was previously known as Tverskaya, and they were located in another location on the other end of town. But they moved over here around 2016 or so, and I think they were open till probably late 2018, early 2019. When they closed, it was definitely a crippling blow for me because I absolutely adored this restaurant. I loved to come here every chance I had. I introduced a lot of people to it over the years, and it's just a shame to see a place like this that, of course, doesn't stay in business because it was one of my all-time favorite restaurants, and with good reason, it's number 1 on my list. Now I know by now you're probably yelling at your computer monitor, hey, you forgot this restaurant, you forgot that restaurant, your list is flawed. Well, if that's the case, I'd like you to comment down below and share with me what restaurants you think I left off this list that would have been good inclusions. All I ask is that you keep it civil, no insulting or degrading comments. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and make sure to subscribe to my channel because I'm always posting new content. I'm Taylor T. Carlson, and I will see you in my next video.